Let's talk about these developments with political analyst Peter Mathews. He teaches political science at Cypress College in Los Angeles. Peter, thank you for being with us.
Good to be here, Natalie.
Good to see you. Well, in a matter of weeks, the president has released his Secretary of State, his chief economic advisor, and now sources tell CNN it will be National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster next, a highly regarded general. Why would he be parting ways with him?
I can only think of one reason, and that is a difference in policy, and also sometimes it's also personality, so as the president says. I think it's more or less policy, because McMaster actually differed with the president on a couple of items, and he didn't like McMaster's approach to this national security issue of including, for example, North Korea and a few other issues where McMaster seemed to take a more moderate position on those issues, but that the president wanted him to take. So I think it has to do with the difference there. In some cases, with Tillerson, it has to do with personality as well as policy. So the president got a record. There's no other president who's dismissed that many people in such a short time. It's just quite amazing, actually.
Yeah, the question is, who can work with this president? We should point out this is the president's second national security advisor.
Yes,
the president has maintained, though, that the revolving door is not chaos, it's new energy. Is he crystallizing, as you mentioned, that those that he can find who will be in lockstep with him?
I really am afraid this could be the case, Natalie, that he wants a lockstep type of cabinet advisors who will just go right along with his commands, basically. And this is dangerous for democracy and for freedom of expression and for good policy, because you don't want to have a bunch of yes men and yes women around you if you're the president who has to make some very serious decisions. You're not an expert in everything else, so you should listen to experts who may differ among themselves. And the famous phrase that President Lincoln had a team of rivals around him on purpose. They could discuss and debate issues, and the final word with the president's, but he'd have all kinds of viewpoints to draw upon. That's not seems to be President Trump's modus operandi. He just seems to want to have a lot of yes people around him, and that's very, very dangerous, actually.
No, it does not seem very close to Mr. Lincoln, does it? Well,
not at all. Furthest thing.
The president, interestingly, criticized Mr. McMaster just last month when the general said, yes, Russia meddled in the U.S. election, and Trump pointed out, but we didn't collude. Well, now the Trump administration has imposed sanctions on Russia for doing just that. After all of these months of saying this is all a hoax and fake news, why now is there an admission by Mr. Trump that Russia did meddle in the election?
I think it has to do with the overwhelming evidence that Trump could not deny anymore, and he was being pressured by even people in his own party. It meant much of Congress, obviously, is overwhelmingly in favor of the sanctions. They passed the sanctions. They want the president to enforce them. So he finally buckled and went for it. Now, no telling how what he'll do tomorrow. That's the thing about Mr. Trump. He is so inconsistent, especially if he has a bunch of yes people around him once he cleans up his cabinet from those who are actually good advisors that could help him. Once he gets rid of them, who knows who's going to be next? Would it be Mr. Kelly next? Some people are talking about that possibly. So we're in very uncharted waters here, although we see President Trump behaving pretty much like he's done all these times, and it's not a very encouraging sign, actually.
Right, yes, and as you say, we don't know today if he'll sound a different tone tomorrow, and he certainly has sent those very direct statements about Vladimir Putin, not willing to criticize the man. White House spokeswoman Sarah Sanders was asked whether Vladimir Putin was a friend or foe, and she wouldn't answer, saying only Putin has to decide if he's a good actor or bad actor. What kind of duck is that response?
You know, I'm wondering, Natalie, what is it that the Russians have? What's his relationship there exactly that keeps him so leveraged against making objective decisions, it seems like? Does he have a lot of investments from Russians in his businesses? Hasn't he sold very expensive condominiums to them and made profits, huge profits? Like, for example, the $45 million condo he bought in Florida, he sold to an oligarch for $92 million, I believe, or so. What about all of those business transactions before he became president and the investments from there? Could that have any kind of implication? That's what Mr. Mueller is going after next, I believe, very strongly. And we should hear something about that. But that's very dangerous, is dealing with the issue of the difference between private enterprise on the part of a public official and the public good that he should be pursuing. And it's wrong to conflict the two. You have to make a priority the public good.
Yes, we also saw the special counsel issue a subpoena regarding Mr. Trump's financial dealings, if any, with Russia. So he keeps inching more down that path.
Yes.
And that also indicates that this isn't an investigation that's winding down, does it?
It certainly does indicate it's going to be several months at least. As I predicted earlier, I said it could be several months to even more than a year that could continue with this investigation. And this is a good indication that it's going to be a long time before this thing is over.
What do you see if it continues right through the midterm elections? What impact could that have?
It certainly can't help the Republicans in any way, because it looks like they're going to be so split among themselves. And you're looking at the top Republican, the President of the United States, in the crosshairs of all of this controversy, which is not good for his party or for him or for his policies. And it's going to continue, and Mr. Mueller will be making headlines on these indictments. Now, further indictments are maybe coming down, and investigations. It's not a good thing at all for someone who's trying to make policy or lead the country. But it seems like Mr. Trump seems to thrive on chaos. It seems to me, and I don't know what's going on exactly as far as what will this president do for America, for promoting the public good and getting the country back on track again and uniting us as a nation. That's so important that a president needs to do that. All presidents recognize that.
Right.
And we wonder what's going on at this time.
Yeah, part of Russia's goal was to cause conflict, and it seems to be working, doesn't it? Well, Peter Mathews, we always appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie.